So first step, actually, after we have a new sketch, look on the left side. You'll see this tool for segments, rays, and lines. We want the ray, so it'll go on forever as we're trying to create all these evenly spaced points. We want to make sure we have plenty of room. So the next thing we're going to do is label these points, A and B. You'll see the label tool there on the left. That way we can keep track of things. Now select the circle tool, and we're going to use it like a compass and mark off a specific distance there on our ray. Now we want evenly spaced points, so we're going to do it in the opposite order. We're going to use our new point as the center and drag back to the original to create this new circle exactly the same size. You'll see that radius is the same as this radius. So those are exactly the same size. I have some evenly spaced points. If I keep doing this over and over, again I get the same radius, same size circle, so we should have evenly spaced points. Notice it doesn't have to hit B, and I don't really want it to hit B. So we make sure you'll see the circle and line turn blue, and so we know that the point is right on it. Keep making several points here, and so now we have all of these evenly spaced points. The thing is, we don't really care about the circles. They're just there to mark off even distance. So if we drag a box to select those, if we were to hit delete, everything disappears, including the points, and we don't want that. So what we want to do is actually hide that. So if you go to the display menu at the top, first select all the circles, go to the display and hit hide, and then they'll all go away. You'll notice point B again is still there, and the reason it's there is so we can scale things. If they're too far spread out or whatever, we can shrink those things down. And that'll help us out quite a bit in terms of spacing. We can zoom in on our project later, but right now this should do for us. What we want to do next is if we'll mark this as a center, we can actually rotate this and copy it. So instead of redoing all of those points on another array, we can rotate it. You'll see an image there. There's 90 degrees and 30 degrees if we want to rotate up. But if we wanted to rotate down, if we just type in a negative angle instead, negative 30 degrees, that'll put it below. And so now we have these evenly spaced points. And the way we create the curves then is to connect some outside points to inside points, so the farthest to the closest and vice versa. You'll notice just a second ago we changed the color of those segments. That way we can go ahead and see what our design is going to look like on the computer before we go and get string. You'll notice, there we go, we skipped point B. Actually we hit point B on accident. If you'll just do Edit Undo or Control Z, it'll undo that for you. So again, we're going nearest to farthest and vice versa. And you'll see our curve kind of come about here. There are several other things that we can do with this now. If we think this is a shape we want to be in several places on our diagram, we can move it around, which I'll show you in a second. You'll also see again B, remember we'll scale it, so we can make it smaller or larger, and it takes everything with it. We started with that original ray, and everything was either a rotation or in a minute I'll show you a reflection of that. So dragging these points around will change our shape, and we can put it anywhere we want. Now, just like in Word, you can hit Control-C and copy that, but then you won't be able to manipulate it. So next I'm going to show you some ways to move this thing around. Just like we rotated the original ray, you can also rotate all of this. If we'll just select it, mark our center like we did just a second ago, and we can rotate it all these different degree measures that you're kind of seeing here. There's 180 degrees. You saw 90 degrees just a second ago. So there we have another replica just like it without going through all the hassle of creating evenly spaced points and connecting all those segments again. So it's a pretty good way to get your diagram moving around. If you don't like it, simply Edit Undo, and it'll undo it for you. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to rotate around a different point. You don't have to rotate around the vertex necessarily. And you'll see kind of an interesting curve here. Notice that point kind of exploded, if you want to call it that, and that's how we know it's the center. So now we can see how many degrees. There's 180 degrees, and you'll notice we get a pretty good S-shaped curve. Remember, in the string art, the string isn't always necessarily the most important part. The curve obviously is what we want to accentuate, and sometimes it's even the spaces in between the curves, which will make your string art look pretty good. You'll notice now I just connected a segment, and we talked about line symmetry. I want that to be a line of symmetry. So if we'll mark that as a mirror under the transform menu, now I can select everything and simply reflect it. And you'll see all of my curves again come back. And now you can kind of begin to see how those open spaces, not just the curves and the strings themselves, but the open spaces become part of the picture. we can change the color of anything that's selected, and so you kind of see this figure 8 shape. Looks like I grabbed on A or on B, and you can move your diagram as well. All these long lines aren't going to be part of it, and they're kind of distracting. So if you don't want to see those, just do what we did earlier and go to Edit and hide those things. So you can kind of get a feel for what your string art will actually look like instead of having all those lines around the ends like that. So again, we get this figure 8, and your eye is really drawn not only to the curves but the spaces. Again, point B you can use to go ahead and rescale that also.